In the heart of San Antonio, Texas, stands a small stone structure that has become one of the most iconic symbols in American history, the Alamo. To millions, it represents courage, sacrifice, and the fight for freedom. But beyond the legend lies a far more complex story, one that intertwines ambition, rebellion, empire, and myth-making. This is the true story of the Alamo, dissected piece by piece. Long before the 1836 battle, the land that would become Texas was a crossroads of civilizations. Indigenous peoples such as the Texan, Tonkawa, and Comanche roamed the plains and river valleys, shaping the region through trade, warfare, and migration. Then came the Spanish in the early 18th century, intent on expanding their empire northward from Mexico. In 1718, the Spanish established Mission San Antonio de Valero, part of a chain of missions aimed at converting local tribes to Christianity and securing Spanish influence. Over time, this mission evolved. Its stone church would one day become known as the Alamo. The word itself came from the Spanish for cottonwood, referencing a grove of such trees nearby. By the early 1800s, the mission had been secularized, its religious rule fading as the Spanish Empire weakened. The site later became a military outpost, first for Spanish troops, then for Mexican soldiers after Mexico's independence in 1821. What began as a mission for faith had become a fortress for war. After gaining independence, Mexico faced the monumental task of governing its vast territory. The northern province of Texas was sparsely populated, vulnerable to raids, and far from Mexico City's control. To encourage settlement, the Mexican government invited immigrants, many from the southern United States, to farm and defend the frontier. These settlers, known as Anglo-Americans, brought with them not only ambition, but also enslaved labor, despite Mexico's official abolition of slavery. Over time, cultural and political divisions deepened. Mexican officials promoted Catholicism and centralized authority, while many settlers favored local autonomy and Protestant values. By the 1830s, tensions had reached a breaking point. When General Antonio López de Santa Anna seized power and dissolved Mexico's constitution, many Texans, both Anglo settlers and Tejanos, viewed it as tyranny. Rebellion simmered across the land. In late 1835, the Texas Revolution erupted. Rebels seized San Antonio after a brutal siege, forcing Mexican troops to retreat. For the revolutionaries, it was a major victory, but it would be short-lived. Santa Anna, determined to crush the rebellion, marched north with thousands of troops to retake Texas. By February 1836, fewer than 200 Texan defenders, a mix of volunteers, Tejanos, and adventurers, fortified the Alamo. Among them were figures whose names would echo through history: William B. Travis, the young commander, James Bowie, the frontier fighter, and Davy Crockett, the famed Tennessee congressman and folk hero. The defenders knew they were outnumbered. Some estimates suggest 1,800 Mexican soldiers against fewer than 200 inside the walls. Yet they stood their ground, believing their resistance would buy time for the larger Texan army to organize. On Feb 23, 1836, Santa Anna's forces surrounded the Alamo. For 13 days, the defenders endured bombardment, dwindling supplies, and no reinforcements. Travis's legendary letter, signed "Victory or Death," was a desperate plea for aid that never came. At dawn on March 6th, Mexican troops launched their final assault. Wave after wave of soldiers stormed the walls as cannon fire lit the early morning sky. The Texans fought fiercely but were overwhelmed. Within 90 minutes, the Alamo had fallen. All the defenders were killed. Only a few civilians survived to tell the tale. Among the dead were Travis, Bowie, and Crockett, each immortalized in story, though their actual fates remain debated. Santa Anna ordered the bodies burned, leaving ashes where legends would soon rise. The fall of the Alamo was a crushing defeat, but within weeks it became a rallying cry. "Remember the Alamo," echoed across Texas as General Sam Houston led the rebel army to victory at the Battle of San Jacinto, capturing Santa Anna and securing Texas independence. In this transformation, the Alamo ceased to be a place of loss and became a monument of resistance. Yet the myth-making had begun almost immediately. Later retellings turned the battle into a moral struggle between freedom-loving Texans and a tyrannical Mexican army, a simplification that ignored the region's deeper complexities. For much of American history, the Alamo has been romanticized as a fight for liberty. But historians now urge a more nuanced view. Many of the Texan revolutionaries were fighting not just for freedom, but also to preserve slavery, which Mexico had abolished. The rebellion thus embodied both a struggle for independence and a defense of an economic system rooted in human bondage. Similarly, Mexican soldiers, often indigenous or mixed-race conscripts, have long been portrayed as faceless villains, though they too fought for their nation's sovereignty. The Alamo was not simply a clash between good and evil, but between two visions of freedom, empire, and identity. Even today, the Alamo continues to inspire debate. Preservationists, historians, and activists argue over how it should be remembered, as a shrine to heroism, a site of colonial resistance, or a symbol of cultural conflict. The Alamo's significance extends far beyond Texas. It captures a universal theme: how nations construct memory. Every generation reinterprets the battle to reflect its own values: courage, nationalism, or even resistance to oppression. In modern times, the story of the Alamo invites reflection on how myths shape identity and how history can both unite and divide. The site itself has become a pilgrimage ground for millions. Visitors walk its quiet courtyards, imagining the thunder of cannon fire and the final cries of those who fought there. Yet as historians peel back the layers, they reveal a story as human as it is heroic, one of tragedy, ambition, and the complexity of revolution. What then does the Alamo truly teach us? It reminds us that history is never static. It evolves through memory, storytelling, and interpretation. It teaches that bravery can exist on all sides, and that even the most revered symbols can hold uncomfortable truths. The Alamo stands today not just as a monument of stone, but as a mirror reflecting America's struggles with identity, race, and myth. It forces us to confront how we remember the past and why we choose to remember it that way. Nearly 2 centuries later, the cry, "Remember the Alamo," still resonates, but perhaps not as a call to arms, rather as a call to understanding. The story of the Alamo, in all its complexity, invites us to look beyond the legend, to honor the humanity of those who lived, fought, and died there, and to recognize that the true power of history lies not in its simplicity, but in its depth.